Let me get this straight. The closer you get to someone, the more likely you are to destroy the relationship. I study couples who've been together for decades to understand what makes love last, and somehow the thing that kills most relationships is actually trying too hard to keep them alive. Sounds like cruel irony, right? But it's not fate, it's psychology, and there's a dark truth about long-term relationships that nobody wants to admit. Let's break it down. Picture this. You meet someone amazing. The chemistry is electric. You can't stop thinking about them. Everything feels effortless and natural. You're both putting in effort, but it doesn't feel like work, it feels like play. Fast forward 6 months. Suddenly, you're analyzing every text message. You're wondering why they didn't seem as excited to see you last night. You're trying harder than ever to make them happy, but somehow they seem distant, less interested, almost bored. What the hell happened? Here's what nobody tells you. The very behaviors that feel natural when you really care about someone are often the exact behaviors that will push them away. And this isn't just some cruel twist of fate, there's actual science behind why this happens. Think about it like this. Relationships are like cats. When you first meet a cat, it's curious about you but cautious. If you try to grab it and force it to love you, it runs away. But if you sit there, maybe glance at it occasionally, act like you have better things to do, suddenly the cat is all over you, purring, rubbing against your leg. Humans work the same way, especially in romantic relationships. We're wired to want what we can't fully have, and to lose interest in what comes too easily. But here's where it gets dark. Most people, when they start really caring about someone, do the exact opposite of what actually works. They start chasing, they start trying to control the outcome. They start acting like that desperate person trying to grab the cat. I call this the intimacy death spiral, and it's killed more relationships than cheating, money problems, and incompatibility combined. Here's how it works. Phase 1, the attraction phase. Everything feels natural. You're both a little uncertain about where this is going, so you're both on your best behavior. You're giving each other space. You're not taking anything for granted. The sexual tension is high because nothing is guaranteed. Phase 2, the attachment phase. One person, let's be honest, it's usually the guy, starts catching feelings harder and faster. Suddenly, his entire emotional state becomes dependent on her response to him. He starts texting more, calling more, planning more, analyzing everything she says and does for signs of how she feels about him. Phase 3, the suffocation phase. She starts feeling crowded, not because she doesn't like him, but because his energy has shifted. He went from being the confident, slightly mysterious guy she was attracted to being the needy guy who needs constant validation that she still likes him. Phase 4, the death spiral. The more she pulls back to breathe, the more he panics and tries to pull her closer. The more he tries to pull her closer, the more suffocated she feels. Eventually, she checks out completely, and he's left wondering what he did wrong. Sound familiar? Don't worry, we've all been there. But here's the really dark part. Most relationship advice actually makes this worse. Communicate more. Be vulnerable. Share your feelings. Yeah, that's great advice. If you want to speed run the death of your relationship, because here's what they don't tell you. Attraction and attachment operate on completely different psychological principles. Attraction thrives on mystery, challenge, and uncertainty. Attachment thrives on security, predictability, and closeness. The problem is, most people think that once you're attracted to someone, you should immediately switch to attachment mode. Wrong, dead wrong. The couples who make it long term, they've figured out how to maintain attraction while building attachment, and that requires understanding some uncomfortable truths about human psychology. Truth number one, people value what they have to work for. This isn't just about playing hard to get, it's about understanding that humans are wired to pursue, not to be pursued. The moment you become the pursuer instead of the pursued, you've fundamentally shifted the power dynamic in a way that kills attraction. I know a guy who was married for 15 years, happily married, his secret. He never stopped being someone his wife had to win over on some level, not through games or manipulation, but by maintaining his own life, his own goals, his own interests that didn't revolve around her. Truth number two, certainty kills desire. The moment someone knows they have you completely, the chase is over, and humans are hardwired to chase. It's why couples who live together often have less sex than couples who don't. It's why long-distance relationships often have more passion than local ones. Scarcity creates value. But this doesn't mean you should be unavailable or play games. It means you should be genuinely busy building a life that's so compelling that being with you feels like a privilege, not a given. Truth number three: emotional neediness is attraction kryptonite. This is the big one. The moment your happiness becomes dependent on someone else's response to you, you've lost. Not just the relationship, you've lost yourself. Here's what emotional neediness looks like in action. You send a text and then analyze how long it takes them to respond. You interpret their mood as a reflection of how they feel about you. You start making decisions based on what you think will make them happy rather than what you actually want to do. And here's the kicker: this behavior doesn't come from love, it comes from fear. Fear that they'll leave, fear that you're not enough, fear that if you don't constantly prove your worth, they'll realize they can do better. But guess what? That fear becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because the energy of fear is repulsive. People can sense when you're operating from fear instead of confidence, and it makes them want to get away from you. Now here's where this gets really interesting. The people who are naturally good at long-term relationships understand something that most people don't. Love isn't about losing yourself in someone else. It's about becoming the best version of yourself while sharing that journey with someone who's doing the same thing. Think about the couples you know who've been together for decades and still seem to genuinely enjoy each other's company. I guarantee you they haven't spent the last 20 years trying to make each other happy. They've spent 20 years pursuing their own growth, their own interests, their own goals, and sharing that process with each other. They understand that the best thing you can give someone you love isn't your constant attention and validation. It's the gift of being someone worth loving. But here's the practical part that most people miss. How do you actually do this without being cold or distant? First, you have to get comfortable with uncertainty. Yeah, that means sometimes you won't know exactly where you stand with them. Sometimes they'll be less responsive, less enthusiastic, less available, and instead of freaking out and trying to fix it, you learn to match their energy. If they text you less, you text them less. If they seem less excited to see you, you don't try harder to win them over, you get equally busy with your own life. This isn't playing games. It's maintaining your own center of gravity instead of making them your center of gravity. Second, you have to develop what I call outcome independence. This means you genuinely have to be okay with the relationship ending, not because you don't care, but because you know that a relationship where you have to constantly fight for someone's interest isn't a relationship worth having. When you're truly outcome independent, you become attractive again because you're not trying to control how they feel about you. You're just being yourself and letting them decide if they want to be part of your world. Third, and this is crucial, you have to maintain your own life, your own friends, your own hobbies, your own goals that have nothing to do with the relationship. The moment your entire world revolves around one person, you become boring, and boring is the kiss of death for long-term attraction. I know this sounds harsh, but here's the truth. Most relationships don't fail because people stop loving each other. They fail because one person becomes so focused on the relationship that they stop being the person the other person fell in love with in the first place, after finally understanding why trying too hard kills relationships. I started wondering, what about the couples who actually make it work long term? What are they doing differently? And that's when I discovered something that completely changed how I think about love. The strongest relationships aren't between two people who need each other. They're between two people who want each other but don't need each other. There's a huge difference. Need is desperate. Want is powerful. Need comes from fear. Want comes from abundance. When you need someone, you'll do anything to keep them, even if it means losing yourself. When you want someone, you'll only be with them if they enhance the life you're already building. But here's what's really dark about all this. Most people will never figure this out. They'll keep repeating the same patterns, wondering why their relationships always follow the same trajectory. They'll blame bad luck or incompatibility or timing, never realizing that they're the common denominator in all their failed relationships. And the dating advice industry loves this because it keeps people coming back for more tips and tricks and strategies, when the real answer is much simpler and much harder. Stop trying to make someone love you and start becoming someone worth loving. So yeah, now you know why the harder you try to keep someone, the more likely you are to lose them, and more importantly, how to break the cycle. You're welcome. That's going to cost you one subscribe or a comment below if you've ever found yourself in the intimacy death spiral. If you want to understand the specific psychological triggers that make someone want to chase you instead of the other way around, this video right here breaks down the science of attraction in long-term relationships, and trust me, once you see how the brain actually responds to different behaviors, you'll never make these mistakes again.